Hey construction enthusiasts, before we dive into today's episode, a quick shout out to the OGCA Construction Symposium, the go-to event for industry leaders. This year, it's bigger and better, with an expanded education program, an interactive trade show, and exclusive networking opportunities. Join us at the Blue Mountain Resort and Conference Center from April 11th to 13th. Visit ogca.ca for details. Don't miss out on the OGCA Construction Symposium, where innovation meets industry excellence. Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm Warren Frey. On this episode, I have 3 interviews from the LEAP Conference, a collaboration between the Vancouver Regional Construction Association and Canadian Construction Women. The one-day conference, held March 8th in Vancouver, brought together women in the construction industry with thought leaders to push their careers further ahead and inspire them with new ways to navigate a male-dominated industry. The first interview is with VRCA President Jeannine Martin and CCW President Seema Lal about the origins of the conference and what they hope to achieve by bringing women in the industry together.
I'm here with
Jeannine Martin from Vancouver Regional Construction Association.
And Seema Lal from Canadian Construction Women.
I'd like to you already gave the origin story to the audience, but could you explain to me what the origin story was of this event, which is the first of its kind, right?
Yeah, so this is our inaugural Women in Construction Conference, collaboration between VRCA and CCW. And, when I joined VRCA, I just thought there's got to be a way to bring women together and talk about the issues that we are experiencing together. It really was born out of a podcast I listened to, Harvard Business Review, Women at Work. And so I called Seema, we are friends, we had lunch. I said, what do you think, can we do this? And she said they were in, CCW was in, and we wanted to do it together so we could attract as many women as possible.
And do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think she's captured it well. Jeannine and I have known each other for a long time, and I knew with her at the helm of VRCA, collaboration with CCW was just going to be a perfect fit. And I think looking at the room that we have here today, full of women that appear to be inspired, I think we were on the right track.
And that was another thing I noticed. Like, it's a construction-focused event, but it's also there's a lot of, to use a diplomatic term, soft power being discussed here. So maybe you could kind of go into what that was all.
Yeah, and I think we're calling it a Women in Construction event because we are both work in this field. However, I think it's women in industry, women in any industry. These topics apply to.
Yeah, and I agree. I think what we wanted to do is to have a conference where women could come and feel uplifted, but also leave with some tools that perhaps they didn't have in their toolkit at the start of the day. And so I think a lot of those skill sets and tools are translatable across many industries. Because construction is a male-dominated industry, like some others, we thought that some of the themes here today would really resonate with the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and I was just going to say, you dream of these things. We dreamed of the topics we would talk about and the speakers. And, when I look around the room and I see all the nodding heads and the raised hands, and I realize that I think we have touched on topics that are really important to this group.
Okay, and this is obviously not just going to be a one-day event, it's an ongoing process, so where should people go with both your organizations to find out more?
Yes, so I think this will be, I'm hoping it'll be a continual collaboration with Canadian Construction Women and VRCA and become one of our signature events, and will happen annually.
I agree. I think CCW is proud to be partnered with VRCA, and we're certainly, from our perspective, hoping we can make this an annual event.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The second interview from the LEAP Conference is with Diana Rolston. She is a coach, author, and speaker, and she told the audience how to work around self-limiting thinking with a talk called Leaping Forward, Dynamic Tools to Break Barriers and Elevate Success. I'm speaking with
Diana Rolston.
Okay, and maybe you could give us, you just talked at the LEAP Construction Conference.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say what your role generally is and what you're talking about today.
Yeah, so what I do is I specialize in coaching female business leaders and women who are high achieving, and I help them to be able to balance their life while still having success and being confident.
Mm-hmm. And you gave not just
that, but you gave a series of tools. So maybe you can explain what those tools are generally and how they apply to somebody specifically in construction, a very male-dominated industry.
Yes. So I talked about the 3-phase LEAP process. So the first piece is clarity. We really need to know, what do we want, and not just career, but in all areas of life, because that'll help us to be able to ask for it. And I shared a tool called the Wheel of Life. It's a professional coaching tool which helps you to measure your satisfaction rather than being kind of subjected to being measured by success. And then I went into phase 2, which is confidence. And in confidence, it's really important that we celebrate our successes, that when we get to the top of a goal, that we go, wow, yeah, look how well I did. And then we write down daily all of the achievements that we've had, because otherwise what tends to happen is we don't own our abilities, and instead we often will own our failures because we look at what's missing, not all the amazing qualities that we have. And then in the last piece, so clarity, confidence, and then we get into action. And you want to have an action plan to be able to do that. But one of the biggest tools that we can have in action is to be able to build your flock, meaning, geese fly in a V, and we want to build that so we have the synergy and the power of other women leading us sometimes, of being able to encourage each other, and just to have that kind of support. So clarity, confidence, and action.
Now, I'm going to use a quite male phrase my dad used to say, we have met the enemy and it is us. And that's what came to mind when you're talking about, there's a lot of self-defeating stuff that women do, and that's obviously a cultural product, but how do women, besides what you just mentioned, how do they work around that to get what they want?
Yeah, so we often will look at what is missing, as I mentioned. And so instead of us being self-judgmental, I encourage everyone to build that muscle of self-acknowledgement. And so saying, who am I being? Like creative, strong, a good listener, and what am I doing well, and what do people come to me for, and what have I achieved? And when you can write that down, I have the tool called the list of awesome, and what are 50 or 100 things that are awesome about you. And so the more you write that down and the more you live in that place, then the more you believe in yourself and have the self-esteem and the self-efficacy to be able to step up and to go into the roles that you're wanting.
And you also cited somebody whose name escapes me, but it was
Marta Mulkins.
That's the one in the Navy, in the Canadian Navy, who said, well, you tell me what she said. Yeah,
so she said that if you are capable, then you can achieve anything. And I really love that, because it's the idea of being capable, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to be the best. It just means, are you willing to say yes, is what I hear it in. And the thing that really got me was she was the first female to lead a Navy ship. Right, Commodore of the Navy ship. And what I really appreciated about what she said to me when I said, well, how did you deal in a male-dominated industry? She says, oh no, I don't compete against them, I just compete against myself. And being an athlete, I totally get that idea of competing against yourself in order to be better and to move yourself forward. And when you focus on yourself, if you can just be 1% better every single day, then you're going to be able to reach your goals.
And there was a bit of wordplay which ended up with somebody getting your book by running up and getting it. So maybe you could explain that better than I just did.
Yeah. So, getting into action, that piece, it's around getting off your butt, B-U-T-T, getting off your butt. And so I said, who wants this book? And everyone sat there all politely, and I was like, no, seriously, who wants this? Hands went up. And then she eventually understood and ran up to get a book. And the other play on that, though, as you were saying, is butt, B-U-T. You have to get off your butt. And so how many people in the room really wanted my book, but didn't get up for fear of what would others think, or maybe they wouldn't get there in time, or would they seem selfish for going to get it? And so our butts can hold us back, and sometimes the BUT is the bigger butt in our lives that's stopping us from getting what we want.
And I kind of skipped the original theme we started with, which is leaning forward. Somebody you could speak to that too.
Yeah, so the conference today is called LEAP, and so I did a play on that with leaping forward. But that's great that you heard the message of lean, because as I was sharing around skydiving, we didn't actually leap out of the plane. We didn't jump, we didn't even step, we just leaned forward. And when you do that action, and the listeners, you can be doing that now, is just stand up and stand there and then start leaning forward, and eventually you're just going to make that step forward. And that's really all you need, right? The hopeful yes and a little bit of a lean, and that's going to make you move forward, as long as you don't lean back or lean left or right, because then you're in the same place or moving backwards.
And finally, you mentioned at the actual event, but maybe you could speak to our listeners how to find out more about this stuff. You had a QR code. Obviously that doesn't work in audio, but how else can they find your what you've done?
Yeah, so the best place to be is to go to www.dianerolston.com. That's DianeRolston. And I'm on the major social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And I have a really great women's community called Dynamic Women. And actually we have an online free group that women can join. And I encourage you to get insights and to get inspiration. And sometimes I love, going live in there. And so that group is called the Dynamic Women Online Community. And so I encourage them to jump on there and or reach out to me in one of the other ways.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And finally, I have an interview with Crown Building Supply CFO Jas Sangha, who was on the Sisterhood at Work panel and spoke to me afterward about moving into construction from outside the field and navigating not only being a woman in the industry, but also cultural factors she faced as an Indo-Canadian.
I'm Jas Sangha. I'm the owner and CFO for Crown Building Supplies.
And you just came out of a panel called Sisterhood at Work at the LEAP construction event put on by the VRCA. And you, first, could you give sort of your origin story in construction? You said you were an accountant for a few years before you went into construction, and you figured, well, accounting is accounting, it'll be the same everywhere, and that was not the case.
No. So many different industries that I had worked in. It was just when I landed in the construction industry, I was felt that was not confidence. I was not competent enough to perform certain tasks, and there was a lot of learning. There's construction industry is run very, very differently. There's a lot involved on the product side, rebate side, even selling the market, accounts receivable. There was a lot of learning and growing pains, and I think being the only woman in my management team is what scared me the most, and I felt
not
like
without reason.
Yeah, and I felt like I didn't know anything, and I forgot everything. My journey had started with me. Actually, I was a stay-home mom at that time. I had a few clients I was doing, but I was raising 3 kids, and I kind of lost myself, and I thought maybe I should just be a mother, and I forgot that I was a CPA until I dived deep into the construction field here, and it just brought so much growth to my past experiences.
And part of the panel was a bunch of women explaining how they kind of navigated around or through stuff you're going to run into, sexism at work. So what were some of the things you cited? Because you did cite a few.
Yeah, like when I was first allowed to work there, it was dress code. I was pretty much told I had to be fully covered. And I didn't go downstairs where the interactions were happening or where the sales were happening, because I felt like everybody's going to look at me and I was going to be judged. It makes you feel really little, and it takes a while for you to just be like, hey, you know what, enough is enough. And I think over the years, very soon after, I'm like everywhere now, and I handle every department.
Do you see that as not just with what you do, but it's sort of overall there's been progress over the last 10 years? I know for myself, I've been to a lot of construction events, and I've worked for 13 years, and I've seen things get a whole lot less male and white and less gray hair. But have you seen that as well?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of racism still in our industry, and it's very sad. We experienced that firsthand when we opened our doors, even with some multinational vendors. They didn't want to open our accounts. But it has come a long way. There's differences because when people are working on site, the mentality of those men is different than the senior managers who are in their organization running the building supplies. There's been I personally in the last 5 years have seen a big change. Everybody's directly talking to me, involving me, as well as just where our HR mandate is to hire more women, and we've had so much success with that. I think it's just that thought process that has to change, and open dialogue. I was very sad at this event that Gary was the only male here.
Which
and
is
I
your
think,
husband, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next step when VRCA and CCW want to have another event. I would tap into our networking and make sure men are here to support the women. That's where the dialogue's going to start.
And I should qualify, it's a lot easier for me, a white-haired white dude, to say, what do you think about that, when I don't have to deal with any of the stuff you do,
Yeah.
so to be fair. So, but what did you take away that you didn't already know from the other women on the panel?
Oh, I think the main takeaway is not to stay silent, really, and take a look at your imposter syndrome. That was very, very something near and dear to me today. Even walking into the room in the beginning, I looked around the rest of the panel, and I was second guessing, like, what? I'm just at the office. I'm a CFO. What am I going to contribute? And I think that's my big takeaway. I had invited my daughter to this event. I want everybody to uplift each other, and I think mentoring was the key. Whether it's men or women in this industry, we have to mentor and uplift.
That was going to be my next question. As a CFO, you are a leader in a construction organization, which is still a rare thing for women to be. So what are your experiences you can give to other women in that regard?
I'm teaching everyone that I talk to have a voice, and that's my biggest complaint with the women, even in our organization, is they feel like they need to tiptoe around the men. They don't want to ask too many questions. They don't want to say if somebody's treated them unfairly. They're like, oh, I'm just letting you know, and I have to send them back. And I said, no, you're going to go address this right now. I can do it on your behalf, but how long am I going to do it? It's all about uplifting and teaching them. And I give them authority. And I said, listen, this person marches into my office. Don't worry, we're going to sit down and handle it. But somebody's wronged you. You gotta step up. You can't be silent anymore.
But it's tough.
It's
culturally
really tough.
It's tough.
It's very tough. Being from the Indo-Canadian background, I was raised in a household where two completely different views from parents. My mom always said, the men lead the way and you follow. My father has 3 daughters and he raised us all like sons. And he always said, there's no difference between you guys. And that's what I still keep with me today.
Okay, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And that's it for this episode of the Construction Record Podcast. You can hear us on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music, as well as on the Journal of Commerce and Daily Commercial News websites and the constructionrecord.libsyn.com. Thanks for listening.